One of the most profound leadership lessons of my career didn't happen in a boardroom or an executive coaching session. It happened at 30,000 feet, watching a complete stranger have a meltdown. And what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about influence, control, and what it really means to lead. I'm Dr. Cara. I'm a thought leader, strategic visionary, and connection expert who spent over 25 years unlocking human potential. I have a PhD in international psychology. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I hold an executive leadership coaching certificate from Georgetown University. I've worked with leaders across 4 continents, from healthcare systems in Europe to corporate executives in California. Helping them bridge the gap between strategy and execution through what I call connected leadership. But here's what you need to know about who I really am. I wasn't always the connection expert. For most of my career, I was actually the control expert. I built systems, implemented processes, and believed that perfect structure could guarantee perfect outcomes. I was sitting on that plane as someone who had spent years trying to control my way to success. And I was about to witness something that would shatter everything I thought I knew about influence and leadership. Stay with me, because this story reveals not just what I learned, but who I became in the process. Picture this: a flight from Washington, D.C. to Ukraine. I'm sitting in my seat mentally preparing for an international consulting project when I hear it. That sound every traveler dreads. A toddler, maybe 2 years old, absolutely melting down. And his mother, she's in full crisis mode. She's cycling through every technique in the parenting playbook. Toys didn't work, snacks made it worse. Stern voice escalated the situation. The entire cabin was watching. You could feel the tension building. People were sighing, shifting in their seats, and giving those looks like, get them under control. Here's what caught my attention. As someone who spent years studying human behavior, the harder she tried to control the situation, the more out of control it became. Sound familiar? I watched this unfold for what felt like an eternity, and I'm thinking about my own leadership journey. Because sitting there watching this mother's desperation, I recognized something. I'd been that mother, not with a toddler, but with my teams, my organization, and my own career. The truth is, for years I have been the leader who believed that if I could just find the right technique, implement the perfect system, and control every variable, then I could guarantee the outcome that I wanted. Let me tell you why this moment hit me so hard, and why it reveals everything about who I am as a leader and as a person. By this point in my career, I had built a private practice from solo to 50 employees across 3 locations. I was a licensed clinical social worker, and I had a PhD in international psychology. But here's the truth about who I was. I was a leader who believed that if I could just control every variable, manage every outcome, and perfect every system, that I could guarantee success. I was flying to Ukraine to advise healthcare leaders on organizational transformation. But secretly, I was exhausted from trying to be the leader who had all the answers. I was the person who stayed late to redo the work because it wasn't quite right. I was a leader whose team meetings felt like performance reviews. I created perfect systems that produced compliance. But what I was missing was something crucial, and I didn't even know what it was. Sitting on that plane, watching this mother struggle with the same pattern I was trapped in, I realized something terrifying. What if the person I thought I needed to be as a leader, the controller, the perfectionist, the one with all the solutions, was actually the barrier to becoming the leader that I was meant to be? And then something shifted. The mother stopped. She took a deep breath and set aside every toy, every snack, every technique that she had been frantically trying. She simply picked up her child and held him. Not to fix him, not to control him, but to connect with him. She whispered something I couldn't hear, but I could see her shoulders relax. She wasn't trying to manage his emotions anymore. She was receiving them. She wasn't fighting his experience. She was joining it. Within minutes, the crying stopped. Not because she had found the right technique, but because she had found the right presence. The child melted into her arms and fell asleep. The entire cabin exhaled. But here's what absolutely floored me. In that moment, she had more influence over the situation than in all her previous efforts combined. She didn't gain control by controlling. She gained influence by connecting. That's when it hit me. The most powerful leaders aren't those who master control. They're those who master connection. First with themselves and then with others. Now, I know some of you are thinking, that's a beautiful story, Dr. Cara, but I don't lead toddlers. I lead professionals. Here's the thing, whether it's a 2-year-old having a meltdown or a senior executive resisting change, the same principles apply. When we try to force outcomes, we create resistance. When we create connection, we create influence. Think about your own leadership right now. How much of your energy goes into trying to control outcomes, manage reactions, and ensure compliance? And how's that working for you? Here's what I've learned. After 25 years of studying human behavior, most leadership advice is actually teaching you to be that mother, frantically cycling through techniques instead of the mother who found her power in presence. I want you to think of a recent leadership challenge where you felt like you were pushing harder and harder, but getting nowhere. What if, instead of pushing harder, you paused to connect more deeply? What I learned from that mother and what reveals the core of who I am today is what I call connected leadership. This isn't just my professional framework. This is who I've become as a person. I went from somebody who believed control equals strength to understanding that connection is the real source of influence. I transformed from a leader who tried to manage emotions to one who creates space for them. I evolved from someone who feared imperfection to someone who finds power in authenticity. The 3-step process that emerged: receive, perceive, and respond. It isn't what I teach, it's how I live. Receive. I learned to create space, to take in what's happening without immediately jumping to solutions. Just like that mother taking a breath. Perceive. I get curious about the deeper need behind the surface behaviors, both in myself and in others. Respond. I choose actions rooted in connection and understanding, not reactions rooted in control and fear. This is who I am, someone who discovered that the greatest leadership breakthrough isn't about perfecting your control. It's about mastering your connection, first with yourself and then with others. Leadership isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become. Over the next 5 episodes, I'm not just sharing my frameworks and techniques. I'm taking you inside my personal transformation from control-obsessed leader to connected leader. You'll see who I was, who I became, and most importantly, who you could become too. Next, we will focus on the personal crisis that forced me to choose between proving my worth and knowing my value. If you're ready to discover not just better leadership techniques, but a fundamentally different way of being a leader, please hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, what's one area where you recognize yourself trying to control instead of connect? Here's the truth about who I am. I'm someone that learned the crying toddler on that plane wasn't the problem that needed fixing, and neither are the people you lead. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to fix and start choosing to connect.